I just made a video about the absence of chemtrails in Tampa Bay today. I mean, it's a beautiful, perfectly clear emerald blue day. Halcyon skies, I think they have been referred to as in literary terms. Beautiful. I mean, just gorgeous. You know, this I believe. I'm high level of confidence. I really am very, very confident that this is exactly what yesterday would have looked like. Now, what I was saying is I was making a video. I just made a video, and I was talking, and the camera wasn't even on, and I didn't know it. I thought the video died while I was talking because my phone does that a lot, but in fact, I don't even think the camera was on because I started another video, started making a second video. So this video right here is replacing the video that was preceding the other video that I made that I didn't make because the camera wasn't on. Either it wasn't on or, no, it definitely was not on because there was no video recorded. So, okay, so basically all I'm saying is exactly what I'm saying in that other video. You can see the beautiful clear skies in that other video, but you can see it here too. Beautiful. I mean, just gorgeous. And this is what yesterday would have looked like, I believe, if there hadn't been 20 or 30 or 50 or however many jet planes there were up in the sky, leaving 200-foot wide vapor trails, contrails that were like 200 miles long, or however long they were. I mean, almost as far as you look to the left, almost as far as you can look to the right. You know, however long that is. I'm sure that if you have a sextant or you have some navigational skills and whatever astronomical skills, where you could probably figure out how long those vapor trails were. They were long, however long they were, and then they were cross-hatched, like we discussed. And then today there's nothing. There's like literally nothing, zippo, nothing. It was funny. I stopped at Subway on the church. I stopped at Subway on the way to work yesterday, and my buddy works there. Not my buddy, but just the guy I see every day because I've been going to Subway every day for like 10 years, and. That's an exaggeration, but I do go there every day, but not for 10 years, just for a long time, for at least 2 years, maybe 4 years, a long time. And my buddy's there, and we talked about stuff, and he's, you know, into conspiracies and stuff like that, like I am. So I said, man, because I was blown away yesterday by those contrails, chemtrails, whatever they were. Excuse me. I just said, hey, I just ran, let's see. We ran up 7 flights of stairs, down 34, up 34, down 7, up 7, down 27. No, sorry, down 34. I just did that. So we went to get some bagels and stuff. But anyway, it's a good morning. Good morning. Awesome morning. So what was I going to say? I don't know. Now see, now I see something else to talk about. Okay, so I was talking to my buddy. I said, hey man, have you seen those chemtrails? Or he's like, and his Subway has 2 walls of complete and total window, right? And he just started shaking his head. He's like, every day, all day long, every day. That's what he said. I said, what do you think? Yeah, because they're chemtrails, man. I said, what the heck are they doing? And his take was a little bit different. He said, they're putting metal in the air to help cell phone signals. I don't know. And that just is like, I don't know. I'm not even sure aluminum is, I mean, first of all, I don't know that it's aluminum. That's just what I've heard. But he said it was aluminum. Aluminum is a deadly poison for mankind, basically, by the way, and all natural life. You know, it's not like gold or silver or copper or magnesium, or it's not like there's no recommended daily allowance of aluminum. You know, as a matter of fact, they say it causes Alzheimer's, right? Basically, it causes retardation. They just call it Alzheimer's because they just do. Because basically, the elite are predators. You gotta remember that. I think, my opinion, the elite are predators. Okay, you hear it everywhere. They teach us their ideology. They don't teach us the naked ideology. They teach us kind of a shy, watered down, hinting around version of their ideology, because if they taught us their naked ideology, we'd be like, what? It makes no sense. So they teach us like a little, they give it to us like a little tincture drops, like little measured drops, you know. But so we learn their ideology through their institutions, institutionalized education. There's too many people. We gotta keep population control. Oh, you're ruining you people are like a virus on the face of the earth. You're using up all the water. You know, so that's basically their ideology. Prince Philip of British royal family fame. British royal family is reportedly all Transylvanian, supposedly. God only knows if that's true, but that is supposedly what's true. They're all from Transylvania, you know, down through the generations, centuries and generations. But, oh, and by the way, Prince Charles just bought vampire, what's his name? Vlad the Impaler. Isn't that Dracula? Isn't Vlad the Impaler the same as Dracula? I've heard that it was. Anyway, Prince Charles just bought his castle and he's moving into it, if that tells you anything about the royal family. But Prince Philip, who I don't know what his relationship is to Prince Charles, maybe they're brothers, maybe they're cousins, who knows. He said, he is reported to have stated that if reincarnation is true, then he hopes to come back as a virus so he can wipe out half of the human race. So that is basically the mentality of the evil, the dark side of the elite. Now, obviously, there's a dark side to the poor. There's a dark side to the middle class. I mean, there's all kinds of ideologies, points of view, etc., 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 at every level, right? I mean, you can't say black people are this, white people are this, Christians are this, Muslims are this, Jews are this, American Indians are this, rich are this, poor are this. I mean, you can't generalize, you know, because the laws of the aggregate don't apply to the individual. I mean, you can have, you know, whoever, pick a group you think is evil. Some people think Christians are evil. So you say Christians are evil. Well, the person that said that has a good chance of eventually running across a Christian that they actually like and they think is pretty nice. You know, and the same thing goes with Muslims. I mean, the laws of the aggregate don't apply to the individual. Whatever you think the law of the aggregate is. You know, some people say in aggregate Christians are bad. Some people say in aggregate Muslims are bad. But regardless, at the individual level, the Christian or the Muslim or the whoever could be anything. Could literally be anything. They could be the most noble, selfless, amazing, talented, intelligent, long-suffering, tolerant, kind. I mean, they could be all of that. And by the same, and on the other side of the spectrum, the aggregate that you assign a negative trait to, if you say, for example, you know, I don't want to pick on anybody. I mean, let's just say Martians, okay? So I don't have to pick on somebody. Let's just say Martians, they smell bad and they're notoriously stupid, and not only that, but they're mean-spirited. Let's just say that you believe that about Martians, you know, but obviously we don't talk about Martians. So I mean, you have to replace whatever group you have an aggregate opinion of, and all of us have that. So I mean, it's not like I'm not being critical of you if you have an opinion of an aggregate. I have opinions of aggregates, but I just recognize it in the individual level. My opinion of the aggregate doesn't apply to that person, right? So let's just say Martians, you know, so I don't have to pick anybody out and whatever. They're all of those things. Well, that doesn't mean that someday I might not come across a Martian who is beautiful and doesn't smell bad and is super intelligent and super nice and super, I mean, that's the way it is. The law of the aggregate doesn't apply to the individual, and vice versa. The law of the individual doesn't apply to the aggregate. Just because you meet somebody who's nice in a certain group, don't assume that everybody you meet in that group, they're going to be nice. The same thing goes if you meet somebody mean. So, right? I forgot what I was talking about, but I started talking about this contrail stuff, and I got off into this, all this stuff about the laws of the aggregate, the law of the individual, Vlad the Impaler, the royal family, virus. Okay, so they want to kill us all. Okay, so what I was going to say is that the elite are predators. Okay, and what do predators always target? Who do predators always target? They always target the weak, right? The predator isn't going to go after the strongest animal in the herd. They're going to go after weak ones. They're going to, you know, not necessarily because they're afraid of the strong, but it just makes the most sense logically. You know, let's wipe out the people on the edges, and then we'll start moving in, you know, until we get to the middle. You know, I mean, it's a good strategy because the weak, even though they are weak, they do provide some resistance. So you wipe out the resistance of the weak, and then the strong are more isolated than they were before, and you just continue to isolate until the strong is standing there alone. And even though they're strong, they're not strong enough to face you alone, right? So that's basically the strategy of a predator, right? So they're targeting, they target the weak, the young, and, you know, obviously the unborn babies are the weakest, I guess you could say. So they target them, they target the elderly, they target the sick. Oh, so they target the elderly with this Alzheimer's business, you know. Basically the aluminum, the aspartame, 1,000 other chemicals. There's a guy, if I'm not mistaken, he's the owner of Tom's toothpaste and all those hygienic products. It was on the Alex Jones show, and he was saying that I can't remember. I can't remember the entire context. There was a context more than I can remember. He was saying that you know, the FDA, the government, the elite, because you got to remember the elite run the government. Okay, the elite are like vultures. They're like the bad elite. Okay, there's good, there's bad, but the bad elite, they're like vultures. They're like parasites. They're like you know, flies. They're like dung beetles. You know, they go to where the biggest piles of money are, and the biggest piles of money are in government. You know, I mean, if you're in government and you control a $4 billion budget because you're the head of this agency, and that's probably not even a big agency, but let's just say that you do. I mean, just the fact that you control a $4 billion budget, I mean, come on. That's a lot of power. That's a lot of power. That's a lot of prestige. So imagine being somebody who controls a $1 trillion budget, you know, or a $500 billion budget, or a $200 billion, or $800 billion. I mean, that is a lot. It's not quote unquote your money, but I mean, that's a lot of power. You control the flow of that money. Now, obviously, a lot of that money is spoken for before it ever gets to you, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, even if you start nipping away at the edges of an $800 billion budget, I mean, those are some big bites. You know, if you take a bite out of an $800 billion pile of money, I mean, that you can take a very big bite and nobody will ever know that. That you took a bite, right? So that's where the elite gravitate to. I mean, they also have their corporations. They also have their industries. You got to remember, they don't just control corporations; they control industries. And sometimes they're the same, because if you rise through the ranks of a corporation, you start buying off all of your competitors. Now there's only 3 people in the industry. Basically, you control the industry, or at least you have a lot of influence over the industry. Maybe the other 2 guys are not in complete cooperation with you. Maybe they are. Maybe they are. It could go either way, right? So the 3 of you, and then eventually maybe the 3 of you start fighting, and, you know, I mean, it's just like kings and queens. It's the same thing all over again. It's just different nomenclature. So you start fighting, and one out of the 3 of you is going for dominance, and the other 2 are resisting, but you're persisting and persisting, you know, and then you go and you look for friends, you look for allies, natural place to look for allies in a battle of titans like that, right? In a natural place to look for allies in a battle of that scale is in government, right? So you start schmoozing people, you know, so that's where it all boils down to consolidation of power and wealth. That's where all the evil comes from. It's like a cesspool. It's like a swamp of disease. It's like a giant field of weeds, of deadly, nasty weeds that attract nothing except stink bugs and rats, you know? And that's what the consolidation of power and resources is. And that's what it turns into. So you go to government, and then there's people say, well, you know, Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, I mean, they're great entrepreneurs, and they're the epitome of a capitalistic philosophy. No, they're not. They're the epitome of a fascist philosophy. They're fascist. They cooperate with government. You see Warren Buffett sitting up there with Hillary Clinton, like a literal witch. A literal witch. Chelsea Clinton is known to be walking around with upside down, you know, most people walk around with a cross. She walks around with upside down crosses around her neck. She gives shout outs to the Church of Satan on her Twitter account. And there's Warren, and her mother is like reputation for unbelievable stuff, you know, killing hundreds of thousands of women and children in the Middle East to implement some utopic idea of world domination. I mean, and literal witch, attending witch ceremonies. I mean, and there's Warren Buffett sitting up there. These guys are not capitalist. They're fascist. They rose through the ranks of the capitalist, okay? Not to participate in capitalism, not to endeavor to keep the playing field level so that other people like them could enter the field. No, they rose up through the ranks of capitalistic enterprises in order to wreck capitalism. Okay, maybe that wasn't their objective, but when they got up to the top, that became their objective. Now their objective is to be fascist. Now their objective is to cooperate with government to keep other people out of the playing field, right? That's what fascism is. It's all about envy. It's all about coveting. It's all about having everything. It's not about having enough. It's not about having an abundance. It's not about gaining more in order to do more. It's more about gaining control. It's more about strangling the system that feeds you, which is a form of insanity, but that is what they do, because they're like cancer. You know, the cancer feels powerful when it destroys your whatever, you know, liver, heart, kidney, brain, bones, blood, whatever. The cancer, you know, you could say, personifying, you could say that the cancer has power. It feels power when it wrecks you. But what the cancer doesn't realize, because it's stupid, right? Because it's a parasite, is that it is wrecking the host, and pretty soon it's not going to have anything, but it doesn't care because it's its nature to wreck things. That's what a fascist is. And that's what these guys are. These guys that come in and they buy up all the competition, they don't exist to serve humanity. They don't exist to serve other people. They don't exist to improve the quality of life. They exist to wreck things. But in their mind, they're not wrecking it. You know, they're like Hitler. Hitler thought he was building a better world. Oh, the master race, you know. Or they're like Joseph Stalin. You know, Joseph Stalin starved 8 million people so that 20 million people could have a better life. I mean, that's the way these people think, right? They think that is the mind of a person who has no conscience. Sorry, not conscious. Conscience. That's the mind of a person who has no conscience. That's the mind of a person who believes in the principle of the end justifies the means. And that's a very prevalent principle, very prevalent principle in our church, by the way. I was in Sunday school and a lady said, well, we can't do that with this generation because that just doesn't work. And I'm sitting over there, I'm like, doesn't work? What are you talking about? We don't do what works. We do what's right. That's what we do. Once you start focusing on what works, you have, by definition, given what's right a boot to the back, right? You've kicked that into second place. Now it becomes, well, if it works, then it's good. I mean, you don't look at it that way. You don't see that far down the road, but that is what you're talking about. You know, I mean, if we can get more youth to come to church by, you know, doing something that we shouldn't do, I mean, yeah, maybe it will work, right? But does that make it right? No, that doesn't make it right. Well, then, therefore, we don't worry about what works. We do what's right. And we get our reward for doing what's right, but we don't manipulate. We don't calculate. We don't, I mean, that's crazy, right? That's Joseph Stalin. That's Adolf Hitler. That's the way these guys think. They think about, oh, this works. I mean, it's so prevalent. You see that everywhere, right? People are like, well, it worked. It's like, well, okay, but I mean, yes, but I mean, look at the means. You can't just look at the end. Unless you want to be Joseph Stalin or Adolf Hitler, you have to look at the means. I mean, no. See, no. I mean, people are all obsessed with the result. It's like, well, no, I'm not. I'm more obsessed with doing good, and the result will be whatever the result will be. I mean, God willing, the result will be good, but maybe it won't. Was the result for Jesus good? When he was hanging on the cross and people were spitting on him and he was naked and his body was ripped to shreds? I mean, was that good? Well, he didn't do very good, did he? That didn't turn out too good for him, did it? You know, you can just hear, you can hear people, right? Well, obviously, whatever he's trying to do, it didn't work. You can't worry about what works. I mean, to a certain degree, yes, maybe. But you know, I believe if you really want God's favor, if you really want God's favor, you really want to do what's right. I'm sorry, if you really want to get God's blessing, as opposed to your premeditated, calculated, preconceived, plastic, Disney World, Pee Wee Herman, stupid little idolatrous result, right? If you really, instead of all that nonsense, instead of all that crap, right? All that stuff that is just a moment in time away from being something that's rotting in the landfill, right? And that's all it is. Everything you have, everything I have, everything is junk. The only difference between your lovely, beautiful this or your love, oh, it's so beautiful, the only thing is time. The only thing between that and that rotting piece of junk is time. That's it. That's it. And that's the cool thing about the idea, to me, it's the cool thing about the idea that to the infinite, anything that is finite is infinitely small. Therefore, it can be said that to the infinite, anything that is finite doesn't exist. Doesn't even exist. The exception to that is when the infinite has the power to impute existence to something that otherwise would not exist. Right? And that is what I believe God does for us when we do right. He imputes existence to us. And existence is glorious. The lack of existence is inglorious. Like that movie, Inglourious Bastards. What a great movie that was. I think it was a cartoon. I think it was a comic. I don't think it was a true reflection of history. I don't think, anyway, I don't want to get into all that Nazi stuff, but, you know, the entire West was addicted to Hitler. It wasn't just like, and then, you know, they're like best friends. The Americans were the American elite, Thomas Watson, the founder of IBM, the British elite, all the elite of the West were in on the deal with Hitler. And then they're like incestuous brothers and sisters. And then they all started fighting with each other. I mean, basically, Hitler started fighting with everybody, with all of his brothers and sisters. I mean, that's basically what it was. And it's because he became too powerful and he thought he could take over. But they were all in on it. I mean, Thomas Watson, the Solutions Company, Adolf Hitler, the final solution, you know, Thomas Watson provided Hitler with the technological tools to implement the final solution, okay? And now they're the Solutions Company, right? So they were all in on it. It's not like, oh, the Nazis are evil, the Americans are good. It's like, no. Hold on a second. Hold on. It's not, that's a lovely little narrative. So simple, and so clean, and it makes us feel so good. No, but the reality is nothing like that. Margaret Sanger, I mean, all of these American society, Western society, you know, my mother's a Muslim doctor. At least I think he was Muslim. He was from Egypt. I mean, it was amazing. We were like brothers in spirit. I mean, this guy, he was awesome. He was so absolutely totally into conspiracies. But he was into conspiracy on the other side, you might say on the other side of the conspiracy globe, right? You could say that almost. He looked at it from the opposite direction. He looked at, like, in the Muslim world, they all consider Adolf Hitler to be a Christian. I mean, to them, that's what a Christian is, you know? At least, that's the feeling that I got. And they look at the Christian world and they're like, they look at the Christian world like the way we look at the Muslim world. It's like, I mean, you know, we're not impressed, and you know what? They're not impressed either. And I'm sure that both of us have a point, you know? It goes back to Abraham and Sarah and Isaac and Isaac and Ishmael, right? I mean, Abraham and Sarah is the one that drove Ishmael's mother off into the desert specifically to die. Wait a minute, not just Sarah and her son, okay? Sarah and her son. The son that Sarah told Abraham to, how do you say, conceive. Basically, a 90-year-old man raped a young Egyptian slave, right? They created this child to manipulate circumstances. There's the whole end justifies the means thing again. They conceived this child to manipulate circumstances that they thought, oh, this needs to happen. They thought that this needed to happen, right? So they're looking at the end. They don't care about the means. They do this thing. And then, when God does it the way He had planned to do it all along, for Sarah to have the child, oh, now they think they can just throw Sarah and Ishmael, not Sarah, they think they can just throw Ishmael and Hagar away. And I got to be honest with you, it wasn't so much Abraham, it was more Sarah. But Abraham bowed to Sarah the way Adam bowed to Eve. So this is where something where the Muslims are right. A woman not only loves, but needs a strong man. And what are they doing to men in the West? Knocking them down, and making them weak, making them weak psychologically, weak spiritually, weak physically, weak in every possible way, in every little crevice and crack they can inject weakness into the Western man. They're doing it, right? Because the story is that Eve's sin was that she tempted Adam. Adam's sin was that he gave in. The story is that Sarah tempted Abraham. I mean, who wouldn't go for a young, beautiful Egyptian slave? Presumably beautiful. I think the narrative says that Hagar was beautiful. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was. I mean, who wouldn't, right? That's a temptation. And Abraham gave in, right? That's the story. So what do men need to be? Men need to be strong, right? We need to be talking. You can't talk about strong men. It's like politically incorrect. Talk about strong. I'll talk about strong men all day long. And I'll talk about these weak, lisp-talking, intellectually weak, spiritually weak preachers getting up there racist, talking about people are evil because of the color of their skin. Racist preachers. My preacher, Glenn Money, and this little twit fool that he invites to speak to our church about how evil white people. I'm like, what? Have you lost your mind? I have 9 white grandchildren, you dumbass. You know, why should I not rise up in rage against you? The same way a black man should rise up against rage when somebody says that people are evil because of the color of their skin when their skin is black. Why should I not do that? Why should I not take this plate of food and throw it at you, you piece of filth? You evil, nasty, disgusting, incompetent, mentally broken, spiritually broke back little piece of filth. Why should I not do that? You curse my grandchildren. I'll curse you, you piece of trash. Now, why should I not have that attitude? I don't have that attitude. I didn't have that attitude on that day. And I don't have that attitude right now. My question is, why shouldn't I? Isn't it justified? I think it is justified. And who knows? God save me. I don't really want to have that attitude. Because that's an ugly attitude, right? God help me. What if I adopt that attitude? I don't know. Well, that might not be good for me. That's a scary proposition. Do I believe it that it's true? I kind of do, yeah. I kind of do think that these people these men, so-called men, are spiritually broke back. Spiritual homosexuals, spiritual transgenders. Just a step away from being homosexual and transgender in the physical realm. Just a step away, because they're already homosexual and transgender in the spiritual realm. Right? God hasn't called men to be broke back. He's called them to be strong-backed, straight-backed, right? God is immutable. He made men to be immutable. God is also tender and caring. That's the womanly side. And men can have womanly features, women can have manly, fine. I'm not talking about the individual, I'm talking about the aggregate. So anyway, there's no chemtrails, elite or predators that are going after the old and the weak, and the young, sick, the infirm. You know, think about it. Think about the poison they put in the medicines. Who's the medicine for? It's for the sick. They were going after the weak. I mean, they have to be careful. They have to be subtle. They have to be sneaky. I mean, they can't just like go out there like a bunch of savages. Not yet. Eventually they will, but not yet. As things stand right now, they have to be very careful. Okay, so that's why it's hard to catch, because they're very sneaky. You know, they have they don't have like 2 or 3 mass media specialists or mass psychologists or what. No, they don't have. They have teams. They have entire industries, entire universities, entire institutions full of these things, and it's a culture. It's a culture. You know, I was describing the Freemasons as being a place at the entry level. You know, a place where the only thing they want to do at that level is to institute a culture of secrecy. That's it. Whatever else they do is fine. They raise money for the children's hospital. They do this. They do cleanups. They do this, and they do all kinds of. But as long as they get that culture of secrecy, you know, an army of what I deem to be sociopaths, who are for whom a life of secrecy is normalized, right? As long as they get that, that's it. Now that is a perfect example of institutional compartmentalization. It's a perfect example. Say, because I've been struggling. It's like I want to explain institutional compartmentalization, but how do you explain that? That's very hard to explain. But that is, to me, that is a perfect example. At that level, they don't know anything. All they know is secrecy. Okay, fine, whatever. We secret. And then we're going to raise money for the children. We're going to clean up this abandoned building. We're going to do these community projects. We're going to go here, go there. We're going to march in parades. We're going to wear funny little hats. Blah 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 blah. Okay, they don't know that they're part of a bigger plan. But that normalizing secrecy, I think that you might be able to